What happens when the safest place becomes the scene of a slaughter? Denver, Colorado, on a November evening in 2024, carried the biting chill of early winter. Wind whistled through empty streets, sweeping dry leaves across sidewalks with a rustling sound. The Blue Pine Motel, a budget rest stop nestled beside Interstate 25, loomed faintly under flickering neon lights in green and red. The weathered sign creaked in the breeze, as if groaning from age, and this was a haven for weary truck drivers, thrifty travelers, or anyone needing a bed for the night. No one imagined that tonight room 214 would become the heart of a nightmare. 10:47 p.m., the motel's stillness shattered with a scream, sharp, panicked, echoing from the second floor. Martha Kline, the 58-year-old desk clerk, jolted, dropping her coffee cup. Hot liquid splashed across the scarred wooden counter, but she didn't care. Her heart pounded, hands trembling as she fumbled for the phone. That scream wasn't normal. It carried terror, as if someone had faced death itself. I think something horrible is happening. Please come quick," Martha stammered into the 911 call, voice breaking, eyes fixed on the staircase to the upper floor. 10 minutes later, blue and red lights sliced through the night. Officer Daniel Harper, a 38-year-old white cop, tall and broad, with short brown hair and sharp eyes, stepped from his patrol car. With over a decade in the Denver police force, Harper was used to night shifts, car crashes, bar fights. But tonight felt different. The air hung heavy, frigid, as if the city held its breath. He pulled on gloves, checked his holster, and climbed the motel's old wooden stairs. Each step creaked, blending with the wind hissing through broken window seals. The first smell to hit Harper was the musty odor of old carpet, but beneath it, something else. Faint, acrid, like chemicals or bleach. Room 214's door stood ajar, fluorescent light flickering weakly inside, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Harper took a deep breath, hand tightening on his gun, and pushed the door. It squeaked open, revealing a scene that froze his blood. On the thin, single bed, a young woman about 20 lay motionless. Golden blonde hair spilled in a tangle across the pillow. Her blue eyes stared wide, lifeless at the stained ceiling. Her skin was ghostly pale, almost translucent, lips unnaturally purple. A plastic cup lay tipped over on the bedside table, a colorless liquid soaking into the grimy gray carpet, glinting under the light. No blood, no clear signs of a struggle. No chairs toppled, no furniture askew, but Harper, with a veteran's instinct, knew this wasn't an accident. He knelt by the bed, gloved hands careful, checking her neck for a pulse. Nothing. Her skin was ice cold, as if death had claimed her hours ago. Harper stood, eyes scanning the small room. A gray canvas backpack sat in the corner, half unzipped, revealing hastily folded clothes. A pair of new brown leather boots rested neatly by the door. On the table, beside the cup, a worn phone sat, screen dark. Everything seemed normal, too normal, but something was off. Harper stepped to the window, thin curtains fluttering in the cold draft from a gap. He looked out, seeing only the dim parking lot under yellowish streetlights. Beyond, the Rocky Mountains loomed faint in the dark, like silent giants watching the tragedy. He turned back, gaze locking on the spilled cup. What was that liquid? Water? Or something deadlier? The faint chemical smell lingered, twisting his stomach. Sirens wailed in the distance, piercing the silence. Harper heard hurried footsteps on the stairs, paramedics and colleagues approaching. But he couldn't shake the chill down his spine. This room, this motel, was supposed to be safe. A temporary, harmless stop. So what turned it into this young woman's tomb? Martha Kline, still trembling, stood at the doorway, eyes red, peering in. I just heard the scream, she whispered, clutching her coat. She checked in at 7 p.m., seemed fine. She smiled, said thanks, have a good night. Her voice broke, trailing off. Harper nodded, motioning her back as he taped off the scene. Paramedics arrived, but Harper knew they could do nothing. She was gone. Medics in blue uniforms checked quickly, then shook their heads. No signs of life, one said, voice low. We'll take her to the morgue for autopsy. Harper nodded, eyes on the body. Was this natural? An overdose? Or had an unseen hand stolen her life? As the medics left, Harper stood alone in the room, the flickering fluorescent light buzzing overhead. He felt Denver's darkness pressing in, hiding a deadly secret. Who was this girl? Why was she here, alone, in this remote motel? And more chillingly, was a killer still out there, lurking under Colorado's cold night sky? The wind blew harder, curtains flapping, whispering a warning. Harper clenched his fists. He didn't know it yet, but tonight he'd stepped into a case that would shake Denver, exposing shadows beneath the calm of daily life. This girl's death wasn't just a tragedy, it was the gateway to a nightmare, where a horrifying truth awaited. Denver, Colorado, in the fall of 2024, was a captivating blend of nature's splendor and city life. The towering Rocky Mountains framed the skyline, their peaks catching the golden hues of autumn as leaves drifted down the streets of neighborhoods like 5 Points and Lodo. The air carried the crisp chill of the season, mingling with the warm scent of coffee from cozy cafes and bakeries that dotted the city. People bustled about, joggers in parks, workers heading to offices, families enjoying weekend hikes, unaware that a tragedy was brewing. The Blue Pine Motel, a modest, low-budget stop nestled beside Interstate 25, stood quietly, its faded sign and weathered facade a familiar sight for travelers. It welcomed a steady stream of guests, truck drivers resting between halls, students pinching pennies, and wanderers seeking a cheap night's sleep. No one could have predicted that on November 12, 2024, this unassuming place would become the stage for a chilling crime. The victim, Emily Carter, was a 22-year-old with a bright future, born and raised in Boulder, a scenic town just a 45-minute drive northwest of Denver. A senior at the University of Colorado, she studied psychology, driven by a passion to understand the human mind. Friends adored her. Emily was the kind of person who lit up a room. Her golden blonde hair framed her face, her blue eyes sparkled with curiosity, and her warm smile put everyone at ease. She was brilliant and kind, her best friend Sarah Nguyen later recalled, voice thick with emotion. She'd listen to you for hours, really hear you, and make you feel like you mattered. Her professor, Dr. Laura Bennett, praised her too. Emily was a star. Her empathy and insight were rare. I always thought she'd be an incredible therapist. Emily's family, a solid middle-class unit, cherished her deeply. Her father, Michael Carter, a construction engineer, spent long days designing bridges and buildings, always bragging about his daughter's sharp mind. Her mother, Susan, a librarian, loved sharing quiet evenings with Emily, talking about books and dreams. They saw her as independent, a young woman with big goals, opening her own counseling practice, helping people heal. At home in Boulder, Emily's room still held traces of her childhood, a shelf of worn novels, a volleyball trophy from high school, and photos of her laughing with friends. To them, she was their pride, their hope, their light. But in the months leading up to November 2024, something shifted. Sarah, her 21-year-old roommate, noticed subtle changes. Emily used to be so open, Sarah said, eyes downcast. We'd stay up late talking about her plans to help people, her dreams of grad school. But lately she was different, quiet, nervous. Sarah saw Emily sitting on her bed, staring at her phone, her face tense, fingers tapping anxiously. She'd leave suddenly, grabbing her jacket and muttering vague excuses. I asked her if she was okay, but she'd just smile, force, and say it was nothing. The morning of November 12th was vivid in Sarah's memory. Emily, in a gray sweater, jeans, and brown leather boots, slung a gray backpack over her shoulder. I'm going to Denver for a bit. Back soon, she said, her voice tight, her smile thin. Sarah pressed, is something wrong? Emily shook her head, just a personal matter, don't worry. But worry lingered. Emily drove her battered Honda Civic, a hand-me-down from her dad, along the winding roads from Boulder to Denver. The Rockies loomed in the distance, their peaks dusted with early snow, the sky a brilliant orange as the sun dipped low. She stopped at a gas station near I-25, buying a water bottle and a candy bar, her hands fidgeting as she paid. The clerk later recalled her glancing over her shoulder, as if expecting someone. At 7:00 p.m., she checked into the Blue Pine Motel, handing cash to Martha Kline, the 58-year-old desk clerk. Martha, a fixture at the motel for 15 years, noted Emily's tired eyes but warm demeanor. She looked worn out, but she smiled, said, "Thanks, have a good night." Martha recalled, I figured she was just another traveler, nothing unusual. Yet something was off. The motel's grainy security cameras caught a detail. Emily wasn't alone. A tall black man, broad-shouldered, wearing a black hoodie and cargo pants, followed her from the parking lot. The footage was blurry, his face unclear, but he lingered near room 214, speaking to Emily for a few minutes. His hands moved as he talked, his posture stiff, before he turned and left at 7:32 p.m., striding quickly into the night. Emily shut the door and no one saw her step out again. Who was he? A friend? A stranger? The question hung heavy, a clue to the storm approaching. In the weeks before Emily's behavior raised flags, she'd hinted to friends about a personal project, something secretive. In a group chat she typed, "I need to clear something up, but I'm worried, don't ask, please." Jake Riley, a close friend, grew uneasy when she went silent for 2 days. "Emily wasn't the type to ghost us," he said, voice cracking. "I knew something was bothering her, but she wouldn't say what." Her family sensed it too. Susan called her on November 10, hearing a tremor in Emily's voice. She said she was swamped with assignments, but I could tell something was off, Susan later shared, tears welling. "I asked if she was okay. She said, 'Don't worry, Mom, I'm fine.' I wish I'd pushed harder." Denver itself added to the tension. A city of charm, hiking trails, craft breweries, vibrant arts. It hid shadows. The area near the Blue Pine Motel, straddling industrial lots and quiet homes, was calm but not immune to trouble. Police reports noted petty thefts, drug deals, and minor scuffles nearby over the year, nothing alarming, but enough to hint at risk. The motel, with its low rates and out-of-the-way spot, drew a mixed crowd. Martha had whispered to co-workers about shady types, cash payments, no questions, gone by morning. Had Emily crossed paths with one? Her phone offered more clues. Sarah noticed Emily taking late-night calls, slipping outside to talk in hushed tones. Call logs later revealed 3 contacts from an unlisted number in the 48 hours before her death, each lasting a few minutes. Her final text, sent at 6:45 p.m. on November 12th, to an unknown number, read, "I'm on my way. Don't keep me waiting." Who's on the other end? Why choose the Blue Pine Motel, a lonely outpost, over staying in Boulder? That day began routinely. Emily left her dorm at 3:00 p.m., driving through Colorado's scenic routes, the sunset painting the mountains red. She stopped at the gas station, her nerves visible, then reached the motel, checking in with a hurried air. Her backpack hung heavy on her shoulder, her boots clicking on the pavement. Was she fleeing something? Chasing answers? The normalcy of her life? Classes? Coffee with friends? Calls to mom? Faded under a growing unease. Secret calls, a mysterious man, a project cloaked in worry. These threads wove a web of danger. Emily Carter, a young woman full of promise, had no idea her short trip to Denver would be her last. Death waited, lurking behind the motel's mundane facade, ready to strike. November 12, 2024, found Denver, Colorado, wrapped in the sharp chill of late autumn. The Blue Pine Motel, a quiet, unassuming stop along Interstate 25, stood in the shadows, its faded exterior blending into the night. The only sounds were the wind whistling through cracked window frames and the occasional rumble of trucks rolling by on the highway. Emily Carter, a 22-year-old with golden blonde hair and striking blue eyes, had entered room 214 at 7:03 p.m., a gray backpack slung over her shoulder, her face etched with tension. The motel's grainy security cameras captured her final moments alive. She unlocked the door, cast a quick glance behind her, then shut it firmly, sealing herself inside. 7:15 p.m., Emily dropped her backpack into the corner of the small, dimly lit room. She kicked off her brown leather boots, placing them neatly by the door, and sank onto the edge of the bed. The old frame creaked under her weight, the thin mattress dipping slightly. She pulled her phone from her pocket, fingers moving swiftly across the screen as she typed a message. "I'm in room 214, are you here yet?" When no response came, she rose, stepping to the rickety bedside table, and poured water from a plastic bottle, bought earlier at a gas station, into a cheap motel cup. The fluorescent light overhead flickered, casting a cold, uneven glow across the room, highlighting the peeling wallpaper and the stained gray carpet beneath her feet. 7:32 p.m. The hallway camera recorded a figure, a tall black man in a black hoodie and cargo pants, leaving the area near room 214. His head was bowed, hands stuffed deep in his pockets, his steps quick and deliberate as he headed toward the parking lot. The wind gusted, flapping his hoodie, but the blurry footage hid his face, leaving only a sense of urgency as he vanished into the darkness. Inside, Emily didn't open the door again. Perhaps she felt a moment of relief, believing the brief encounter outside was the end of her worries, that she was safe within these walls. 8:10 p.m., Emily settled back on the bed, lifting the plastic cup to her lips for a sip. She reached into her backpack, pulling out a small notebook, a pen tumbling onto the mattress beside her. She scribbled a few lines, her handwriting jagged and rushed, then paused, pressing her fingers to her temples. Sweat began to bead on her forehead. Odd, in the chilly room where the ancient heater sat silent, broken. Her breathing grew rapid, shallow, her hand clutching her chest as if to steady her racing heart. The cup slipped from her grasp, rolling across the table, the colorless liquid spilling out, soaking into the carpet. A faint, sharp scent, strange, chemical-like, not quite water, began to drift through the air. Subtle, but enough to twist the gut. 8:35 p.m. Tremors shook Emily's body. She lurched forward, crawling toward her phone on the table, her trembling hand reaching out, fingers brushing the edge. But her vision swam, the flickering light above blurring into a dizzying dance. She collapsed back onto the bed, her breath coming in desperate, ragged gasps. Her blue eyes widened in panic, darting around the room, searching for a way out, a lifeline, but her limbs refused to obey. Her lips turned a sickly purple, her fingers clawed at the thin sheets, nails digging into the fabric. A faint, hoarse sound, half a cry, half a gasp, escaped her throat, too weak to carry beyond the room, a final plea drowned in desperation. 8:47 p.m. Emily's body went still, her breathing ceased, her hands fell limp, her wide eyes staring blankly at the stained, cracked ceiling. The overturned cup dripped its last, the liquid pooling on the carpet, glinting faintly under the unsteady light. Silence blanketed the room, broken only by the wind rattling the window and the steady tick-tick of a cheap wall clock. Death had struck swiftly, silently, and with brutal precision, leaving the young woman alone in the cold, stark confines of the motel. 9:12 p.m., James Tucker, a 45-year-old truck driver staying in room 212, stepped into the hallway, heading for the ice machine. He froze, his nose wrinkling at an odd smell. Not the usual musty dampness of the motel, but something harsher, like bleach or a chemical cleaner. Concerned, he approached room 214 and knocked, calling out, "Ma'am, you okay?" Silence answered. He knocked harder, the door easing open. It hadn't been latched. His eyes landed on Emily, motionless, eyes open, skin deathly pale. His heart slammed in his chest, his feet stumbling back. "God," he whispered, then bolted down the stairs, shouting to Martha Kline at the front desk, "Call the police. Someone's dead in 214? 9:47 p.m. Tucker's yell shattered the Blue Pine Motel's quiet. Martha, the 58-year-old desk clerk, fumbled the phone, her coffee cup crashing to the counter, brown liquid splashing across the wood. "Someone, I think something horrible is happening. Please come quick," she stammered to 911, her voice cracking, eyes locked on the creaky staircase. Other guests, roused by the commotion, poked heads out of their rooms, voices murmuring in alarm. "What's happening?" one asked, breathless. "I heard a scream," another replied, voice trembling. The motel's simple, everyday calm evaporated, replaced by a rising tide of panic. 10:02 p.m., Officer Daniel Harper, a white Denver cop, pulled up in his patrol car, blue and red lights cutting through the night. He climbed the stairs, each step groaning under his boots, his hand gripping his gun. The faint chemical scent hit him, mingling with the stale odor of old carpet. Room 214's door stood ajar, the flickering fluorescent light revealing Emily's body. Harper paused, his breath heavy. The young woman lay there, blonde hair splayed, eyes wide, lips purple. The spilled cup, the wet stain on the carpet, the strange smell. He frowned, senses on edge. 10:08 p.m., Harper knelt beside the bed, checking for a pulse, but Emily's skin was cold, lifeless. He stood, scanning the room, the backpack in the corner, boots by the door, phone dark on the table. No signs of a fight, no blood, yet his gut screamed this wasn't natural. Sirens wailed closer, red lights flashing through the window as paramedics arrived. Harper stepped to the hall, waving Martha and Tucker back. "No one comes in," he ordered, voice firm and steady. 10:15 p.m., paramedics rushed in, their blue uniforms stark against the dingy room. They checked Emily, pulse, breathing, vitals, but shook their heads. "No signs of life," one said, voice low. "We'll take her to the morgue for an autopsy." Harper nodded, his eyes lingering on Emily. The scene was too clean, too quiet for a natural death. He stepped to the window, peering out at the parking lot, the Rockies a dark silhouette against the sky. The chemical smell lingered, faint but persistent, raising questions. Had someone been here? Was that liquid in the cup the key? 10:20 p.m., Harper questioned Martha again. She checked in at 7 p.m., paid cash, she said, hands trembling. She seemed tired but nice. Smiled, thanked me. I saw a man with her, tall, in a black hoodie. From the lot to the stairs, Tucker chimed in. That smell? It wasn't right, and after I saw her, I heard a car peel out fast, maybe dark-colored. Harper jotted it down, mind racing. A man, a smell, a car, pieces of a puzzle forming. The scene in room 214 was chilling, haunting. Emily Carter, full of promise, had lost her life in hours. Death crept in silently, but its terror spread from this small room to Denver's streets. What was in that cup? Who was the man in the hoodie? A ghost on the camera? The wind howled, carrying whispers of a truth yet to unfold. The night of November 12, 2024, cloaked the Blue Pine Motel in Denver, Colorado, with an oppressive stillness. Blue and red lights from police cars and ambulances flashed across the parking lot, casting eerie, dancing shadows on the weathered walls of the old building. Emily Carter, a 22-year-old with a bright future, lay lifeless in room 214, her blue eyes frozen in a vacant stare at the ceiling. Officer Daniel Harper, a white Denver cop with a decade of experience, had sealed the scene, his mind racing with questions. Was this an accident? A natural death? Or a crime concealed with chilling precision? The air felt heavy, the cold biting, as if the motel itself held secrets waiting to crack open. 10:15 p.m., James Tucker, the 45-year-old truck driver who discovered Emily, sat trembling on a worn plastic chair in the motel's lobby. Dressed in a faded flannel jacket, he gripped a cup of water, handed to him by Martha Kline, the desk clerk. His face was ashen, eyes red-rimmed, gaze lost in the distance. "I just wanted ice," he muttered, voice rough and low, as Harper approached, notebook in hand. "I walked by room 214, caught this smell weird, not like the usual motel stink. Sharp like bleach or some chemical. I thought maybe a cleaner spill, so I knocked to check." Tucker paused, drawing a shaky breath, his fingers tightening around the cup. The door wasn't locked. It swung open when I knocked harder. Then I saw her lying there, still, eyes wide open. God, I've never seen anything like it. Her skin was so pale, lips all purple. I knew right away she wasn't alive. He buried his face in his hands, shoulders quaking. Harper scribbled notes, his voice calm but firm. "Did you see anyone near the room? Anyone coming or going before that?" Tucker shook his head, eyes down. "No, just me. But that smell, it wasn't normal, I swear. Something's off." The mention of a chemical smell pricked Harper's instincts. He stepped back to room 214, pausing at the threshold, inhaling deeply. Beneath the musty odor of damp carpet, a faint, acrid scent lingered, sharp like ammonia or bleach. The overturned cup on the table, the liquid soaked into the carpet, gnawed at him. Was it water or something deadly? He signaled the forensics team, newly arrived, to prioritize it. A tech, gloved and methodical, knelt to collect a sample of the liquid, sealing it in a vial. "We'll rush this to the lab," the tech said, voice clipped and professional. Harper nodded, his eyes sweeping the room. Backpack in the corner, boots by the door, phone dark on the table, hunting for a clue to shift the case. 10:32 p.m., Martha Kline, the 58-year-old desk clerk, edged forward, her coat pulled tight around her, eyes wide with worry. She'd worked at the Blue Pine Motel for 15 years, accustomed to odd guests, quiet types, drifters. But a death was new. "I don't know much," she started, voice trembling as Harper questioned her. "The girl, Emily, checked in at 7 p.m., paid cash. She looked tired but smiled, said thanks, have a good night. Then I saw a man with her, coming up from the parking lot to the floor." Harper's pen paused, his gaze sharpening. "A man? Can you describe him?" Martha frowned, straining to recall. "He was black, tall, maybe over 6 feet, wore a black hoodie, cargo pants. I couldn't see his face clear. He kept his head down, moved fast. They talked outside room 214 just for a bit. Then he left at 7:32. I checked the camera time. She didn't come out after Harper's pulse quickened as he jotted it down. Who was this man? A friend? A contact? Or the key to Emily's fate? The blurry security footage made this a pivot point, a hint of something sinister breaking through the night's quiet. 10:45 p.m., the forensics team buzzed into action, snapping photos of the scene, dusting the cup, table, and doorknob for prints. A tech uncovered a small notebook tucked under Emily's pillow, its pages filled with hurried, scrawled writing. Harper, gloved, flipped it open. The last entry read, "Meet D, 7:30 p.m., room 214. Be careful, not sure if trustworthy." His breath caught. Who was D? The man in the hoodie. Why was Emily cautious? He slid the notebook into an evidence bag, a chill creeping down his spine. This wasn't a random death. Someone's hand was at play. 10:55 p.m., Harper lingered in the room, watching as forensics dusted for more prints, their movements precise under the flickering light. The chemical smell, faint but persistent, clung to the air. He stepped to the window, the cold draft rustling the thin curtains, and peered into the parking lot. Street lights cast a dim glow, the Rocky Mountains a faint outline in the dark. No signs of a struggle, no broken glass, no torn fabric. Yet, the scene screamed wrongness. The paramedics had confirmed no life, prepping Emily's body for the morgue. Harper's mind churned. A young woman, alone, in a place meant for safety, now dead. 11:00 p.m., back in the lobby, Tucker, still shaken, waved Harper over. "Officer, one more thing," he said, voice unsteady. "When I ran down after seeing her, I heard a car. Sounded like it peeled out of the lot, fast. Couldn't see it clear, but it was dark, maybe black or deep blue." Harper noted it, his thoughts racing. A car speeding off? Coincidence? Or a killer fleeing? Tucker, a plain trucker, hesitated. "I don't want trouble," he said, eyes flicking away. "But that girl, she didn't deserve to die like that." His words carried weight, a crack in the silence of a place used to ignoring oddities. 11:10 p.m. Martha, wringing her hands, added more. "I've seen strange folks here," she whispered, glancing toward the stairs. "People pay cash, keep to themselves, leave quick. The owner'd hate me stirring things up, but that smell, that poor girl. Can't stay quiet." Harper nodded, seeing the fear in her eyes. The Blue Pine Motel, a waypoint for the weary, hid shadows. Guests who vanished, secrets unspoken. But Tucker and Martha, despite their nerves, broke that quiet, offering threads to unravel the truth. 11:20 p.m. Harper paced outside room 2014, the wind whistling through the cracked window, curtains fluttering like ghosts. He glanced at Emily's body, now covered by a white sheet, medics lifting her gently onto a stretcher for the morgue. The death was abrupt, unnatural. The chemical scent, the man in the hoodie, the notebook's warning, "Be careful," and the car tearing away painted a grim picture. This was no accident, no sudden illness. Someone had orchestrated this. 11:30 p.m. Harper leaned against the railing, the cold metal biting his hands. Denver stretched out below, its lights faint against the dark bulk of the Rockies. He thought of Emily, her smile to Martha, her youth, her promise, snuffed out in this dingy room. In America, places like this motel often slipped under the radar, crimes buried in neglect. But Harper felt a fire ignite. Emily Carter deserved justice, the clues, the mystery man, the strange liquid, the hurried exit. Marked a turning point. He clenched his fists, the night air sharp in his lungs. This case, born in a cold, cramped room, would drag him into Denver's hidden depths, where a dark truth lurked, waiting to be exposed. November 13th, 2024, dawned cold and gray over Denver, Colorado, the city still reeling from the shocking death of Emily Carter, a 22-year-old found lifeless in room 214 of the Blue Pine Motel. The quiet stretch along Interstate 25, usually just a pass-through for travelers, buzzed with police activity. Officer Daniel Harper, a white Denver cop with a decade of experience, led the investigation, haunted by the image of Emily, eyes wide, lips purple, a spilled cup beside her. The evidence screamed foul play, and Harper was determined to peel back the layers of this crime, no matter how deep they ran. 6:30 IEM, Emily's body arrived at the Denver County morgue, the sterile air a stark contrast to the motel's grimy confines. Dr. Karen Wells, the coroner, began the autopsy as Harper stood by, notebook ready. Emily's skin was unnaturally pale, her lips and nails tinged purple, with no visible wounds or signs of a struggle. No clear physical trauma, Wells noted, her voice steady but grim. The cyanosis and faint muscle twitching point to possible poisoning. She collected samples, blood, tissue, stomach contents. For toxicology, her gloved hands moving with precision. Harper's mind flashed to the overturned cup and the chemical smell James Tucker, the truck driver, had described. Was it the key? 8:15 a.m. The forensics team returned to the Blue Pine Motel, combing room 214 for more clues. They lifted fingerprints from the cup, doorknob, and table, but all matched Emily's, no one else's. The liquid from the carpet puddle sampled the previous night was already at the lab. By 10:30 a.m. results came back. The sample contained a high concentration of potassium cyanide, a deadly, colorless poison with a faint almond-like scent that could pass for cleaning fluid. Harper's jaw tightened. Cyanide wasn't something you stumbled across. It was deliberate, a killer's tool. This was no accident, it was murder. 11. Clock IM. Harper pored over the motel's security footage in a cramped office, the grainy images flickering on a small screen. The tall black man in a black hoodie and cargo pants stood out, arriving with Emily at 7:03 p.m. on November 12. They spoke briefly outside room 2014 before he left at 7:32 p.m., head down, moving fast. No cameras caught him returning, but Tucker's account of a car speeding away at 9:47 p.m. gnawed at Harper. He ordered Tex to pull traffic camera footage near I-25. A black Ford Escape, license plate too blurry to read, was recorded tearing out of the motel area at 9:48 p.m., heading south toward Denver's urban sprawl. At 20 p.m., Harper and his partner, Officer Amy Larson, a sharp-eyed cop with a knack for details, questioned witnesses in the motel lobby. Martha Kline, the 58-year-old desk clerk, repeated her story, voice still shaky. He was black, tall, in a black hoodie. I didn't see his face well. He kept his head low, walked like he didn't want to be noticed. Tucker, nursing a fresh coffee, added that car was loud, like someone flooring it. I didn't get a good look, but I'd bet someone was out there right after I found her. Harper scribbled notes, his focus laser sharp. The notebook found under Emily's pillow loomed large. Meet D, 7:30 p.m., room 214. Be careful. Not sure if trustworthy. Was D the man in the hoodie, the killer? 8:45 p.m., the lab's toxicology report confirmed Harper's suspicions. Emily's blood showed lethal levels of cyanide, causing heart and respiratory failure within 10 to 15 minutes of ingestion. Time of death was pinned between 8:35 and 8:50 p.m. on November 12th. Harper pieced it together. Emily's last text, sent at 6:45 p.m., I'm on my way, don't keep me waiting, aligned with her meeting, D, 7:30 p.m. The cyanide could have been slipped into her water bottle before she poured it into the cup. Harper ordered a trace on the number she texted. It was a prepaid phone, unregistered, activated 3 weeks prior, with its last signal pinging from 5 Points, Denver at 9:50 p.m. the previous night. 6:10 p.m., Harper led a small team to 5 Points, a vibrant district of bars, jazz clubs, and restaurants, but with darker corners where petty crime thrived. Following the phone's signal, they scoured an alley off Welton Street, flashlights cutting through the dusk. An officer spotted a dumpster and inside found a black hoodie and rubber gloves, both stained with a substance later confirmed as cyanide. No fingerprints, but a single short black hair clung to the fabric. Harper's pulse quickened as they bagged it for rush DNA analysis. The killer was meticulous, but this could be their mistake. November 14th, 9:30 IEM. The DNA results landed, matching a profile in the system. Darius Jackson, 29, black, with priors for small-time drug dealing and theft. His file listed an address in East Denver where he worked odd jobs at an auto shop. Harper and Larson drove to the rundown apartment complex, the morning air biting. Darius answered the door, tall and broad, in a gray t-shirt, his eyes narrowing. I don't know nothing about a girl at a motel, he said, voice tight before Harper could speak. Harper read his Miranda rights, voice unwavering. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used in court. Darius was cuffed and taken to the station. 11:15. Amen. In the interrogation room, Harper and Larson leaned in. You were at the Blue Pine Motel on November 12, met Emily Carter. Cameras caught you. The hoodie and gloves with cyanide were found in 5 Points. Talk, Harper said, his gaze piercing. Darius shifted, sweat beading on his brow, hands clasped tightly. I met her, okay? She asked about an old deal I was tied to. I talked to her for 5 minutes, didn't go in her room and left. He insisted he had no part in her death, his voice rising with panic. But the prepaid phone, the text, and the DNA hair painted a damning picture. 2:50 p.m., Harper laid out the evidence: cyanide in Emily's blood, the hoodie and gloves, Darius's hair, the camera footage, the notebook's D. Darius admitted meeting Emily but swore he didn't kill her. She was digging into some guys I used to run with. I told her what I knew. That's it. Harper's gut told him otherwise. The motive was murky. Maybe Emily's personal project into Denver's drug scene threatened Darius's past. But the forensics and witness accounts pointed straight at him. 4:00 p.m., Darius Jackson was formally arrested, charged with first-degree murder. Harper stood outside the station, the Denver skyline gray under heavy clouds. The Rockies loomed faintly, a silent witness to the unfolding drama. Justice was taking shape, but questions lingered. Why Emily? What tied her to Darius? Harper clenched his fists, the weight of the case pressing on him. The investigation, methodical and relentless, had unmasked a suspect, but the full murder of Emily Carter, a 22-year-old found dead in room 214 of the Blue Pine Motel, sent shockwaves through Denver, Colorado. On November 14th, 2024, Darius Jackson, a 29-year-old black man, was arrested for first-degree murder, pinned by damning evidence: cyanide in Emily's blood, his hair on a hoodie and gloves laced with the poison, security footage placing him at the scene, and her notebook's cryptic note, "Meet D, 7:30 p.m. Officer Daniel Harper, a white Denver cop with a decade of experience, had driven the investigation with relentless focus. By March 22, 2025, a jury convicted Darius, sentencing him to life without parole. Yet as the gavel fell, the ripple effects of the tragedy were only beginning to unfold, leaving a city, a family, and a community grappling with loss and unanswered questions. March 23, 2025, the Denver District Courtroom, heavy with the weight of the verdict, emptied slowly. Emily's parents, Michael and Susan Carter, lingered in their seats, their faces etched with a mix of relief and devastation. Susan clutched a tissue, her eyes swollen from hours of silent tears. "It's over, but it's not," she whispered to Michael, who stared blankly at the floor, his arm around her. The guilty verdict brought justice, but it couldn't fill the void left by their daughter's absence. Harper, standing at the back, watched them, his chest tight. He'd promised them answers, and while Darius was behind bars, the why of it all gnawed at him. Why had Emily, a bright psychology student, crossed paths with a killer? March 25, 2025. The Carters returned to their home in Boulder, a 45-minute drive from Denver, but the house felt hollow. Emily's room remained untouched, her books neatly stacked, a volleyball trophy gleaming on a shelf, photos of her laughing with friends pinned to a corkboard. Susan couldn't bring herself to enter, breaking down in the hallway each time she tried. Michael, usually stoic, spent evenings in his garage tinkering with tools but accomplishing nothing, lost in memories of teaching Emily to ride a bike. In an interview with the Denver Post, Susan said, "She was our light, our future. I'm glad he's locked away, but I'll never hear her voice again." The couple channeled their grief into action, establishing the Emily Carter Scholarship Fund at the University of Colorado aimed at supporting psychology students. "Her dream was to help people," Michael said. "This keeps her spirit alive." April 2025. Denver's community felt the case's impact deeply. The Blue Pine Motel, once a forgettable stop along I-25, became infamous, its neon sign a grim reminder of the tragedy. The owner, under pressure, installed new cameras and hired night security, but bookings plummeted. Regulars, truckers, budget travelers steered clear, whispering about the cursed room 214. Locals near the motel, rattled by the crime, formed a neighborhood watch, demanding better lighting and police patrols. "We thought this was a safe area," one resident told a local news crew. "Now we're not so sure." The case sparked broader conversations about safety in transient spaces, with editorials in the Denver Post questioning how a place meant for rest could become a death trap. May 2025, a grassroots movement inspired by Emily's story gained traction. Activists, including some of Emily's classmates, pushed for stricter regulations on toxic substances like potassium cyanide, which had been shockingly easy for Darius to obtain. They drafted the Emily Carter Act, a proposed Colorado law to limit access to such chemicals and increase penalties for their misuse. The bill, introduced in the state legislature, faced debates over enforcement, but won bipartisan support from those moved by the case's horror. "No one else should die like Emily did," Sarah Nguyen, Emily's roommate, said at a rally, her voice breaking. The act's fate remained uncertain, but it gave the community a cause to rally behind, a way to honor a life cut short. June 2025, Harper, back on patrol, couldn't shake the case. He met the Carters after the trial, hugging Susan as she thanked him through tears, but the victory felt hollow. Each night he saw Emily's face, her wide, lifeless eyes, her purple lips. Sketched in his memory, he questioned himself. Could he have saved her if he'd acted faster? Had the system failed her by letting a place like the Blue Pine Motel operate with such lax security? The case changed him, sharpening his vigilance. Denver's charm, its mountains, its vibrant streets now felt tinged with shadows. He noticed the city's underbelly more, the quiet deals and alleys, the strangers who paid cash and vanished. Emily's death exposed a truth. Danger lurked even in the safest seeming places. Community reflection, the case gripped Denver's psyche, fueling discussions in coffee shops, classrooms, and online forums. National outlets like Dateline NBC and 20/20 aired specials, interviewing Harper, the Carters, and locals. What drove a young woman to a killer's path? One anchor asked, probing Emily's personal project into Denver's drug scene. Was Darius the sole culprit, or part of a larger network? Some speculated her digging had threatened others, but no evidence surfaced. The motive, Darius fearing exposure of his past, felt thin to skeptics who wondered if deeper secrets died with Emily. Social media buzzed with theories, from conspiracy threads on X to Reddit debates about motel safety. How does cyanide end up in a motel cup? One user posted. This isn't just one guy, it's a system failure. Personal impact. Emily's friends Sarah and Jake Riley organized a memorial at Cheeseman Park in April, where dozens gathered, lighting candles and laying flowers. She was the best of us, Jake said, voice choking as he shared stories of Emily's kindness, how she'd stay up helping him study, how she'd comfort anyone in pain. The vigil under a blooming spring sky was bittersweet, a reminder of her loss, but also her impact. Sarah, now studying counseling herself, vowed to carry on Emily's dream. She wanted to heal people, she said. I'll do it for her. Systemic questions. The case raised hard questions about oversight. Why were motels like the Blue Pine so poorly monitored? How had a deadly poison slipped into the wrong hands? Harper, in private moments, wrestled with the system's gaps. Budget cuts to police, lax regulations, the way places like Five Points, where Darius's trail led, were left to fester. He pushed for better training on chemical threats, meeting resistance from higher-ups citing costs. We can't prevent every crime, his captain said. Harper disagreed. Emily's death demanded change. Lingering shadows. By June 2025, Denver's skyline, framed by the Rockies, carried a somber weight. The Blue Pine Motel stood nearly empty, its lot silent, the wind whistling through its eaves. Harper drove by sometimes, glancing at room 214's window, now boarded up. He thought of Emily's last moments, her smile to Martha, her text, "Don't keep me waiting." Justice had come, but at a cost. A family broken, a community shaken, a young life erased. The true horror wasn't just Darius. It was the fragility of safety, how a motel, a cup, a fleeting meeting could turn deadly. Denver, forever marked by Emily Carter, learned a painful lesson. The safest places could hide the darkest threats, and no one would forget.